All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Janelle Rainey, Head of Product Marketing, and I'll be moderating today's event. Just a few housekeeping items. Please go ahead and ask your questions in the Q&A panel, and we'll get to as many questions as possible. We are recording this webinar. We will send it out later, and we are also using closed captioning and interpreters today. We are once again excited to provide you with another weekly update on all Zoom's been able to accomplish as part of our 90-day plan and continued commitment and focus on security and privacy. Today, we're going to have Eric, our founder and CEO, provide a progress update on our 90-day plan. He'll be followed by Velshamy Sankarlium, our new president of product and engineering, who will introduce himself. And then we'll hear from Oded Gal, our chief product officer, who will walk through recent updates of our platform. And finally, we'll hear from Randy Barr, head of product security, about some updates related to our bug bounty program. And lastly, we'll open it up to Q&A. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Janelle. And thank you all for your time this week. And we are now into the home stretch of our 90-day plan. And I'm super proud of our team's continued hard work and dedication as we would double down on our privacy and security efforts. So we aren't slowing down either. Today, we announced that Jason Lee will join the company as its Chief Information Security Officer, effective June 29th. Jason brings 20 years of expertise in technology with a specialization in information security and operating mission-critical services. He was most recently the Senior Vice President of Security Operations at Salesforce. We are thrilled to welcome Jason and look forward to his contributions. We continue to get helpful feedback from our community on the cryptographic design of our E2E offering since releasing an updated version on GitHub last week. We are very excited to be offering E2EE as an option to all of our users and look forward to beginning early beta of the feature in July. We have also been working diligently on our bug bounty program, which Randy will provide more detail on shortly. But first, I'd like to introduce you all to Velshamy Sankarlium, our new president of engineering and product. Velshamy officially started with our team on June 12. He is a cloud and collaboration veteran who joined us from VMware. I have known him for years and can see from personal experience that his leadership and expertise in building and implementing scalable collaboration technology is unparalleled. I am very excited to have him overseeing product, engineering, and DevOps teams. I will now hand over to Velshamy to say a few words. Velshamy. Velshamy, looks like you are muted.
Sorry. Thanks, Eric. Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be here as part of Zoom meeting all of you. As Eric mentioned, we've known each other well over the years. And earlier in my career, I held a similar role for many years at WebEx. And most recently, I worked at VMware for the past 9 years, doing different roles, helping VMware scale the business, also transform into a SaaS company. You may ask, why Zoom? Connecting people virtually is more important than ever. And I also have watched Eric and the Zoom team for many years. And I think it's a very special team with a product that plays a vital role in today's world. And this is the only company and the only role I would have left my current job at VMware to move. I've been here less than 2 weeks. I'm pretty excited with the team, both the talent level and the motivation of the team here. So as I get deeper, one of the major things that I'm going to be focusing on is, we have to scale the company, but how do we scale the company while not losing the speed of agility and the speed of innovation that we have as part of the company's DNA? And with the talent that we have in the team, I'm very comfortable we can do that. And I think we'll even reach more customers and meet all their needs with all the new developments that we're making. With that, I would like to hand it over to our Chief Product Officer, Oded. Oded?
Thanks, Velchamy. It's great to have you on board. Let me walk you through our recent product updates. This weekend, we will be rolling out a number of changes with our 5.1.1 client release. For meetings, admins will be able to certainly manage virtual backgrounds within their organization. A security tab will appear in the web portal, gathering security-related settings such as passcode, waiting room, and authentication methods into one easy-to-find place. And Zoom users will be able to sign in with Apple on our iOS app. For Zoom Chat, users will be able to hide their present status from external contacts, and users will also have the option to prevent external contacts from adding new users to a channel or a group chat. As we've referenced on the past couple of webinars, starting July 19th, all meetings will be required to have either a passcode or waiting room enabled. This includes paid accounts. Let me summarize the key changes that are coming that will include requiring all meetings to have either a passcode or waiting room enabled. This will ensure safer meetings. Having a tab labeled security settings that gathers all of our top security settings in one easy to find place. Making a slight change to our nomenclature, unique codes to allow participants to join meetings will now be referred to as passcodes. These are unique to your meetings and are meant to be shared with your invited meetings participants only. Passwords will refer to your Zoom account login credentials. While we continue to make product changes to improve user privacy and security, equally as important is to continue educating our users. Accordingly, we have been making available various resources to ensure users can manage their meetings securely. On this slide is a list of some of those. This includes an ebook on best practices, a resource webpage with tips by various use cases, an infographic from our social channel, and short videos available on YouTube. There are also many webinars available for users to join during the week. Last week, a webinar participant named Jim asked the best assets to share with his end users. So we will post links to these assets in the chat for everyone's reference. And now I will turn the call over to Randy to discuss our bug bounty program.
Thank you, Oded. As part of our 90-day plan, we've been assessing our bug bounty programs holistically. We're looking at both our internal vulnerability handling processes, as well as the effectiveness of our bug bounty platforms that we use today. Throughout this process, we have actively solicited feedback from security researchers to understand how we can engage with the security community as not only an ally, but also a partner in securing Zoom for all of our users. With regards to our bug bounty program and vulnerability disclosure efforts, we've undertaken the following actions. We adopted 2 key ISO frameworks, which enable us to measure the maturity of our bug bounty program. We also centralized bug bounty tickets into one area. Among other things, this allows us to work off of one single database for tracking purposes. It also allows for us to identify potential duplicate issues that are submitted. We also improved our coordination with security researchers and third-party assessors, all of whom are integral to helping to ensure the security of our platform. We added new members to the vulnerability management and bug bounty team and are actively hiring for additional resources within that group. And finally, we also identified certain process gaps and are working to improve on those. On top of our work with the security research community, we've also been engaging with a series of simultaneous white box pen tests to further identify and address issues. On the next slide, we'll share some of those specific areas that we're focusing on related to the pen test. The first one is our Zoom production environment. And we have one firm that's just focused on each of these scope of work. The second area of focus for another firm is to focus on our core web application in our corporate network. And the third one is focusing on the public API for for common clients, but also for mobile and desktop clients. In summary, we have made great progress, but we recognize there's always room to improve. And we look forward to sharing more in the weeks and months ahead. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Janelle.
Excellent. Thank you, Randy. And before we jump into Q&A, I'd like to welcome back Brendan Idelson, Zoom's Chief Technology Officer, and Lynn Holland, our Deputy General Counsel and Chief Compliance and Ethics Officer. We may have Alex Stamos joining after his next meeting. Alex is a widely respected expert on cybersecurity and is an outside advisor to Zoom. So we'll see if he will be joining. So jumping into the Q&A here. Valchami, welcome. A couple of questions in here for you. What is your approach to innovation? This is a very competitive space, and how do you think Zoom will stay ahead?
I would say Zoom has a high innovation culture, and the agility is all there. I think the challenge is how do we make sure that we don't lose this as we grow as a big company? Normally, as you get bigger, things start slowing down, et cetera. I think our job is to make sure that we don't lose the agility while we scale and grow, et cetera. Everything that we put in place shouldn't slow down our innovation. So that's part of my goal here.
Excellent. So another question in here for you. What is your approach to privacy and security?
I mean, I completely agree with, I know Eric has talked a lot about privacy and security. My belief is that, I mean, we recently announced that we are doing end-to-end encryption for like everyone, whether it is free or paid user. I'm fully behind it. Excellent.
Dad, there's quite a few questions in here about passcodes and waiting rooms. A lot of excitement about this feature. Tom is asking, do passcodes and waiting rooms apply to webinars?
Well, passwords are available for webinars, but will not make the same enforcement that we're doing for meetings. And in general, webinars don't have waiting rooms because of the way they operate. So the short answer is no.
Thank you. And how does Zoom Rooms work with waiting rooms?
So in terms of waiting rooms for Zoom Rooms, from an attendee standpoint, when you join a meeting that has waiting room on, you will see a notification that you're in the waiting room and you'll be waiting for the host to admit you. If the Zoom Room itself is the host, then there is interface on the Zoom Room controller to admit participant in the same way it's on the desktop client and on the mobile client.
Excellent. And how will these changes impact people joining by phone?
So it will be similar in the sense that you will have to either put a passcode or you will enter a waiting room.
Okay. And Kelsey's asked, can you explain how waiting rooms work?
Basically, a waiting room is like a lobby in the sense that you get into kind of a temporary space and your name appears on a list of participants that in that space. The host, from their perspective, sees that list and are able to look at the name and admit those participants one by one, or with a single click to admit all. From a participant standpoint, what the participant views is a dialogue that tells them about the meeting and the fact that they're in the waiting room. Hosts can also customize what is showing on that waiting room dialogue.
Excellent. And then you can also whitelist people to come directly into your meeting, correct?
That's a good point. So there is a way to make things a little bit easier in the sense that you can define, for example, that people that are in your company can bypass the waiting room, and only people who are kind of outside of your company will go through that. You can even now add other domains to that list so that you can include kind of more participants that you are familiar with through that method.
Excellent. We use the LTI integration. Will the passcode and waiting room changes apply to this?
Yes, the same will apply to LTI, but as we mentioned, we are preparing and we're giving a month ahead so people can adjust their settings and make sure that their LTI meetings will work well with the changes that we are applying.
Excellent. And somebody's asking what LTI is. That is very commonly used in education for like Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, all of these different integrations that students and teachers use. Will Zoom turn on waiting rooms or passcodes for previously scheduled recurring meetings?
Yes, we will apply to previously scheduled meetings. And the idea is that we also have a choice for previously scheduled meetings to apply the waiting room. And what they mentioned as well is the same applies in terms of waiting room. You can add the ability to exclude people that are in your organization. So you can kind of reduce the impact and the disruption for those previously scheduled meetings.
And how do I activate my waiting room?
So you can see now we have a separate tab, security tab, allows you to really define the settings for the waiting room and enable it. And you can do it on account level, group level, or host level.
Excellent. And then even if you're in that meeting, you can always go to that security icon and turn it on, right? If you
correct, unless the feature is locked, and then you're not be able to turn it off. If it's not locked, then the host of the meeting can turn it on and off during the meeting itself.
Excellent, great clarification. Tim is asking, one tap dial already includes the meeting ID. Can it also include the meeting passcode to make it easier for your users calling in on mobile devices?
Is that, if that's related to the meeting invite itself, then yes, our meeting invites include the passcode in the URL.
And do I need to change the passcode every time I use Zoom?
It's a kind of a one-time setting, and basically we'll create that automatically for the users.
Excellent. So I think maybe clarifying a little bit about what's a passcode versus a password might be helpful.
Right, yes, as I mentioned previously, we refer to passcode as really the access code to a meeting, in the sense that the additional code that you need to enter before joining a meeting. And a password is for the login credential, when you put in your username and your password to log in to the Zoom account.
Okay. Is whitelisting the waiting room only by domain, or can you whitelist individual emails?
It's by domain.
And you can always auto approve for your own account as well.
Excellent.
Thanks, Brandon.
Okay, let's move on to another topic. I'll let you off the hot seat for a little bit, Oded. There might be more there in a minute. Let's see, bug bounties. So Randy, how do I report a security bug to Zoom?
The best way to report a security bug is sending that over to security@zoom.us. And we have a team that's dedicated to review the submissions. So any researcher or anybody that submits a bug, we have individuals that will make sure that they track that and assign it to the appropriate Zoom members that are working in the bug bounty program.
And what are the ISO frameworks that you mentioned? ISO.
Yeah, the ISO framework that we're using to measure our progress towards compliance is ISO 29147 and ISO 30111. We'll continue to measure against that to make sure that we improve on all of our people, process, and technology. And we review that fairly regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean it's on a daily basis to making sure that we're working towards compliance.
Are you changing any of your current day-to-day bug bounty operations?
Actually, yes. So we look at ways to improve in the bug bounty program. So getting feedback from the community to working internally, having conversations with other departments on how we can improve our processes, we will make sure that we apply some of those changes where appropriate. Now, a lot of that also requires us to see how that aligns well with the ISO framework that we want to measure ourselves against. Separately from that, as we continue to hire for any of the open roles, we want to make sure that we implement the appropriate processes just to make sure that it aligns well with the growth of Zoom. So we believe that we'll continually assess our program and make the necessary changes as we move along.
Excellent. So I did hear in there you're continuing to hire, correct?
Yes, we are. On the bug bounty program, we definitely are hiring. We have some management hires that we're putting in place, and we have open positions, not just in the vulnerability management and bug bounty, but we also have openings on our offensive security teams.
Excellent. What exactly is a penetration test, and what types of issues are the best test firms looking for?
So we bring in third-party pen testers to come in with a fresh set of eyes to look at our environment. Normally when you engage with a pen testing firm, it's for a specific scope of work and for a period of time. And during that time, they just look for any issues that they might identify as opportunities for a company to remediate. And the engagement can vary depending on the company, from come in once a year to pulling a number of hours and have them focus on certain engagements. The way Zoom did it this year was a little bit different. We engaged with 3 of the firms that came highly recommended. And we had them focus on those 3 scope of areas that we just mentioned earlier. And instead of putting a set of hours, we said, go ahead and just focus on that scope of work. We're not going to limit you on the hours. We just need your time to be able to look at everything to identify opportunities to improve on that. And they're continuing to do that for us. And one of the changes that we recently made is we extended that engagement throughout the rest of the year. So they're just not here for the initial engagement. They're going to be here for the rest of the year, making sure that we identify additional opportunities to improve.
Great. And does Zoom also proactively look for issues on its platform?
Yes. So the offensive security team that we're building out, we have a pretty decent sized team right now, and we continue to hire for that. That team is dedicated to looking at what the firms are looking for, and then any areas that would be of interest to those offensive security. So these are folks that are just curious by nature. And then they're also looking at other areas outside of what they feel that, that we should focus a little bit more time on. So to answer your question, yes, we are looking at it on our own. We have a team dedicated to that, and they follow the same process that our security research firms are doing, are following as well. And that includes engagement directly with their engineering team and other operations team.
Great. And what has been the feedback from the research community thus far on your bug bounty?
We've been receiving a lot of good feedback, and it varies. Some of them is related to our NDA. That's why we mentioned that we would like for people to go ahead and just submit their research over to security@zoom.us. Some of them is through the experience that they've engaged with Zoom, and we take some of those as examples of processes that we could revisit and possibly improve upon. And as we continue to receive more feedback, we look at how that aligns with our ISO framework that we want to follow, but also areas that we know that we need to improve on. And again, a lot of those feedback varies from different experiences, whether their experience in just bug bounty in general to their experience using or engaging with Zoom directly.
Excellent. Eric, can you talk a little about how Zoom is, how support is scaling with the increased number of users?
Yeah, so prior to, pandemic crisis, we already had a very scalable support team, and we continue to double down on our support team, not only for our resources here, but also all the world. And we continue to hire more and more people, also to optimize our process. Again, there are so many free users, and also sometimes, probably it takes a little bit longer time, for us to solve for those free users. But we do have a lot of resources to work on those paid and enterprise and the business customers. Again, we continue to optimize our support resources and processes as well. Yeah.
Great. Another question is, are you going to have Zoomtopia this year?
I believe so, but for sure that will be an online event. But in terms of data, I think our marketing team and will update us down the road. Yeah.
Excellent. I believe there might be a new web page up on that. If there is, we'll add that in the chat as well.
Yep.
Let's see. Amy's asking, what do you feel is the biggest strength of Zoom right now? It's a great question.
Okay. Yeah, as what Chami alluded to just now, right? It's agility, and also our company culture, right? And the speed is everything. We focus on innovation, and as we further growing our business, we are not going to lose that agility. Plus, we are so proud of our company culture, right? Really focus on customer experience, care about the customer, doubling down on privacy and security for the community feedback. I think that's our strengths. Yeah.
Excellent. This is a question about a feature, but Lynn, you may want to hop in on this one too. I hosted 12-step meetings. We have a disruptor who's left horrible comments in the chat. Is there a way to delete those individual comments? Do you want to talk about the product feature on that?
Yes, from a feature standpoint, this is something we'll be adding soon. And maybe, Lynn, if you want to kind of add on what you can do until then.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Oded. I would just ask everybody and remind everybody that probably the single most important thing you can do if you're hosting a large meeting is to try not to post that meeting ID and passcode publicly. So please be really mindful about that. Some other ways that you can host a large event, of course, is consider a webinar, and then you can nominate a certain number of panelists like we have today. And you can even make that group larger while you're in your meeting. If you see that there are people that you'd like to invite to the conversation as a panelist, you can do that. So we're happy to talk to you if webinar and help you, set up a large event if webinar seems right for you. In addition, if you are having a meeting, of course, where you would like, to invite the public, to invite a larger group, again, we really, really encourage you to post about the event, post the invite, and then maybe consider asking them to email you to get the meeting ID and the passcode. Other things you can do, of course, are use that waiting room. Try to make sure it's people that you know. And then we have set as default, as many of you may recall, we've set as default a screen sharing, so it's host only for the K through 12 and primary and secondary school environment. But that's something that you may also consider for your meeting. We have the security icon with the report a user feature. Again, that's if you're the host or co-host. At the bottom, you'll see that there's a security icon. And there are collected a number of the features that can help you if there is a meeting disruption. So, but again, I really want to emphasize the single most important thing you can do is not post your meeting invite, your meeting ID, and your passcode publicly. But we can help work with you. We can brainstorm with you if you'd like some additional ideas of how to protect your meeting. And we also have a number of things online. We have the weekly webinars, we have resources there, and we're happy to help. Thank you.
Excellent. Does Zoom have any way to decrypt live meetings for good intent intercept purposes? Brendan or Len, do you want to speak to that?
Happy to jump in. So from a technical perspective, no, your meeting traffic, when we're talking about it going between the Zoom clients, is encrypted at the Zoom client and stays encrypted all the way till it is received by another Zoom client in the system. So our servers are not decrypting it in that transport. So we do not have a way to decrypt it for example, intercept. And I don't know if you want to add more onto that.
I would just say that I would just remind everybody that the way that the Zoom is architected, it's my understanding that if somebody did join a meeting, we would see them. So if somebody, we don't have a backdoor or a lawful intercept capability, which would allow somebody to join without being visible as a participant.
Oded, can you talk about how would you sign in through the Apple iOS? I think that was a new feature you were talking about.
Yeah, there will be a new option when you open the app for the first time, or if you're not signed in, that allows you to do that through the Apple user interface.
All right, I see Alex has joined us. Welcome, Alex. Question here for you. Will you offer a product that is truly end-to-end for paid users? Maybe you could also talk a little bit about the paper that was recently published.
Right, so
feedback on that.
Yeah, Zoom's actively developing an end-to-end encrypted option for meetings. That option will be offered to all Zoom users. And for both paid and unpaid users, it'll be something that you will choose on a per meeting basis. It is truly end-to-end encrypted. So the keys will be created by the host or the first attendee in the meeting. There's some complications here. But the keys will be created by attendees to the meeting and will be distributed point to point between the different people who are part of the meeting. They will never hit any of Zoom's infrastructure. And Zoom will have no capability to insert somebody into the meeting. That will be completely up to the decision of the host. There's a paper published several weeks ago, and then just this last week, we published a new version, taking in lots of feedback from cryptographers, academics, civil society, law enforcement, and the like. That paper has been published. It's available on GitHub. I can throw that out in the chat for people who want to read the detailed paper. But if you look through it, you'll see it is a detailed description of the cryptographic design that is of the same kind of standard that you see in other end-to-end encrypted products.
Excellent. And one thing about that paper I think it's worth noting is, Alex, you were one of the co-authors, as well as Leah Kistner, as well as some of our employees. So we had the third-party cryptography experts like yourself. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process of how you collaborated together?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting process. So if you look at the title, there are three groups of people. There's folks who have been at Zoom for a long period of time. There are several people who are part of Keybase, which is a company that Zoom acquired specifically with the goal of building up its cryptographic ability. For those of you who don't know, Keybase has built a very well-respected Slack-like corporate communication channel, as well as some other kind of communication products with end-to-end encryption from the beginning. So they have gone through this process several times. And then you have the outside consultants, of which were Leah Kistner, formerly of Google, Matthew Green of Johns Hopkins, and myself. And it was a very interesting process. I mean, this is nobody has shipped this kind of end-to-end encryption on this kind of product before, right? There's a bunch of interesting issues. Probably the most kind of well-known group chat that allows people to do end-to-end encryption is on Apple FaceTime, which works well. But FaceTime is meant for people who know each other. You have exchanged phone numbers. That's how you authenticate each other. And it only allows up to 32 people at a time. Zoom allows up to 1,000 people in a meeting, 50,000 people into a webinar. Very different kind of product. And then all of these other issues, such as people authenticate with corporate logins. Folks are coming in, you want to be on a Zoom meeting without having to exchange your phone numbers, for example. And so this was a very unique issue. And we couldn't go, for most folks, if I was consulting with most companies, they said, we want to ship in an encryption. I'd say, oh, well, go look at somebody who's done it before, document it, and just use that. But nobody's done anything like this. And so what we did was we looked at all kind of the best practices of the academic and the industry thinking on how do you do end-to-end encryption. And then we tried to map that to the specific needs of Zoom and its customers. And I think we've come up with something that is pretty unique. The paper is also Creative Commons. So if other people want to use our design, they're perfectly welcome to. Our goal is to really set the standard here for enterprise communications at a much higher bar than it's ever been in the past.
Excellent. Between what you're saying and what Oded's been saying about passwords or passcodes and waiting rooms, leads great into the next question. Eric, how do you balance, so think about that as a company, maybe Balshami as well, if you want to chime in, privacy and security versus ease of use, and how do you think about that, especially in this industry?
Yeah, well, Chairman, go ahead, please. Yeah.
I would say, look, if you're good at one, you're a good company. If you're good at multiple things, you're a great company. So I think that is what makes us unique. Look, for a service like this, the primary thought is like availability. Then you look at like agility. Then you look at cost. But then now privacy and security are two other pillars that we need to do that. And I think we have the capability to do all of this without compromising each other. And that's what makes Zoom unique. Eric?
No, very well said. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Mark is asking, what's the best way to save chat conversations?
There's actually a button on the chat panel that you can click while you're in the meeting. And when you click on that button, it allows you to save the chat. You can also set it up as automatic, where it can save the chat automatically. When the meeting ends, you will see a dialogue that shows you where it was saved. And Brendan, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, just the items that Oded shared, as well as if you are using our cloud recording feature for a meeting and have the setting enabled, any chats that are sent to everyone in the meeting will be recorded into that cloud recording as well. So you have the reference there.
Is there a way to mass register a group of folks for a meeting using an Excel spreadsheet?
So we do have the ability, if you turn registration on, to upload a CSV or comma separated value file. So in Excel, you can always do a save as and save it as a CSV and then use that to upload into that registration capability.
All right, and then we have a question on it. Does the Zoom meeting paid account have the translations and breakout rooms? So they all have breakout rooms, and translations are on business, education, or enterprise accounts. And for webinar, you can do that as an add-on as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about how the simultaneous interpretation works, or the translations, which we have on in this meeting, as a matter of fact?
Yes, sure. I think it's important to understand what is the problem we're trying to solve. Really, the idea behind the feature is to create ease of management and ease of use. Ease of management in the sense that when I create an event and I want it to be translated to different languages by people coming in and simultaneously translating the speech, without this feature, I would have to really have a separate service and provide information to the people in the different languages manually to that separate service. And also kind of have a team of people manage all of that in multiple interfaces. So that's from a management standpoint, we kind of consolidate everything into the Zoom UI, where I can assign those roles to those specific interpreters. And then I can kind of look at, as an organizer of the event, I can see who is providing which language, and I can kind of manage it from that same interface that I'm using for the webinar itself. From an attendee standpoint, really provides, again, ease of use in the sense I don't need to go to a separate interface or a separate system to listen to the sound that comes in a different language, in the language I choose. I simply get into the webinar the same way I'm used to. And I have a button interpretation, allows me to choose the language of choice, my native language, and just listen to it with original language coming in 20% volume and the new interpreted language in 80% volume. So that's basically the idea behind this feature.
Excellent. The breakout rooms, is it only available for companies, or can I use it for personal gatherings? And breakout rooms are available for all, so you can use that. Dan has a few more questions on breakout rooms. What are the best practices for creating breakout rooms? Is it possible to set them up ahead of time or on the fly? Can the presenter pop in and out of different breakout rooms? And can multiple people be assigned to pop in and out of breakout rooms? So all about breakout rooms. Oded or Brendan, do you want to take that?
Happy to start, and Oded, please jump in as we're going. So breakout rooms have a lot of power in how they are run and organized. So really depending on your use case, you can orchestrate them different ways. There's some individuals that want to do a random pairing of individuals. And so there is a way with breakout rooms to find how many breakout rooms you want and have the system dynamically assign individuals into those rooms. Great for sort of a mixer event. Another option is to actually pre-upload who should go into certain breakout rooms so that when you go into breakouts, it automatically goes into those sections. Really popular in an academic setting where you have maybe a large lecture format and then breakout sections with a set student list. So there are sort of two options that you can approach there. Now, as the host of the session, you can switch which breakout room you're in and jump in and out accordingly, and then also assign people to different breakout rooms so they have that ability to switch and jump between. Oded, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think just anecdotally, a lot of people have been using it in happy hours, right? Where it's kind of similar to a party where, you know, a few people kind of go to the side and talk among themselves, and kind of groups of people talking separately. You can form the same type of experience with breakout rooms where, you know, there's a group of maybe 100 people coming into a happy hour, and then the host can at some point put them in separate groups to have a conversation and then bring them back. And you can mix it up with the random, or you can do it manually like you mentioned, but it's a great way to enhance a gathering.
Definitely. I know we use it for a few of our meetings as well. If we have a topic that becomes very interesting, we can sometimes break people out of the main session into that breakout session to work through that topic, then come back and present it. It's great.
Excellent. In Zoom meetings, are there plans to let the host to rearrange the participant videos when they're in the gallery view?
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of feedback around that, especially for the education space, and for kind of other use cases like, you know, the judicial system where you really want to have the hierarchy between the participants in the meeting. And we're looking into how to build that in an easy to use way. But again, the short answer is yes. We'll work on that.
Excellent. In order to manage virtual backgrounds, will clients need to be updated to 5.1.1, or will this management feature be backwards compatible?
It does require the latest client.
So all those teachers with teenagers out there, have them update those clients, right? As a mom of 2 teenage boys, I can say that. Let's see. Do you collect, share, or sell user data? Lynn, would you like to talk to that?
Yes, I would love to answer that one. Please take a look at our privacy policy. There is certain data that we collect. We collect it primarily in 2 ways. One, you provide us, if you're using Zoom, you provide us some information. And 2, when you use the services or the platform, the system will collect some information. That information, for example, is your IP address, so you can make the connection, possibly your user ID, and a few things along those lines. But let me be clear, that's again, when you're using Zoom, we collect the information that we need to deliver you the service. We do not sell user data. We do not sell user data, and we have no plans of selling user data.
Excellent. Oded, can you add an option for an account admins to reset the waiting room settings globally so users get our default settings without requiring us to lock the settings?
So it depends if waiting room is already enabled, and then when you enable waiting room for the whole account, it will enable for those who don't have the waiting room, but it doesn't fully reset everyone's settings, if that's the question. I'm trying to kind of understand what is exactly the use case. Maybe Brendan, you have an insight of what exactly the problem that the user is trying to portray.
And I need to hear it one more time, but
yeah, can you add an option for account admins to reset waiting room settings globally so that users get our default settings without requiring us to lock the setting?
Got
So
it.
I think can I turn it on, but just as a default and not a lock.
So using our current settings, you can make it a default without locking it. So what if you turn it on the account level, that's exactly what will happen.
Yeah, and that will make it the default. That will make it the default for all future meetings. In order to update past meetings, it would be locking that setting.
Okay. Alex or Brendan, while we wait for end-to-end encryption, do you still provide encryption technology for free and paid accounts?
Yes, so all Zoom meetings are encrypted. Just like pretty much every other product in this space, they are encrypted, what's called transport encryption. So the encryption, it keeps the information secret from anybody who would be listening on the line. So if somebody was tapping your connection or broke into a computer on the way, but the keys are available to Zoom. The goal of the end-to-end encryption project is to create a situation in which the keys are not available to Zoom. Which again has to be a opt-in because there's a number of features such as, right now we're broadcasting this webinar to YouTube. To do that, Zoom has to take the Zoom meeting and re-encode it in a way that's appropriate for YouTube. Zoom needs to have the keys. But in private meetings where all of the people are participating from Zoom clients or Zoom rooms, who don't need to have phone call-ins, who don't need to stream to YouTube and the like, those kinds of meetings, we will have that option for end-to-end. But yes, every meeting is encrypted with AES 256 GCM, which is a government standard used for classified information and is consistent with the best practices of all the other companies in this space.
Excellent. Although I don't think all the other companies are using GCM.
No, maybe not. So the transport encryption, the model of encryption is effectively the standard.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Of this kind of enterprise.
I think we may have leapfrogged a few with GCM. Okay. Can you edit the recording of your Zoom meeting? Oded or Brendan?
Well, there are two ways to do it. Well, Brendan, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Oded.
Well, we have two types of recordings. We have the cloud recording and the local recording. If you're using the local recording, it's basically a video file that you can, edit using existing tools for video editing. If you're using our cloud recording, then there are some ways to edit the video in the sense of trimming it, but that's the most you can do. It is integrated into a web page with all the transcript and the capabilities to search, and so it comes into a user interface that is kind of fixed in that sense, and that's why there are limitations from that standpoint. And Brendan, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, happy to add to it. So when it is on our cloud, there is still the ability to download it though. So if you wanted to edit it locally, after it has been put up on our cloud and then share that edited version through other methods, you still have that capability. It's one of the powers of Zoom is that whether it's local or on our cloud, we do store in a standards-based format that allows you to download it and edit it later on because we think you should be in control of your media.
Eric, does Zoom have plans to go beyond and above the video conferencing platform?
I think a video conferencing is, is in terms of total addressable market is getting bigger and bigger, right? So we truly believe a video is a new voice, right? And the voice is a part of that. And we introduced the cloud-based phone system. I think that's another very big initiative, for us to work on. And again, based on the customer community feedback, we are going to add more and more innovations. For now, we are focusing on the video and the voice.
Great. And what is onzoom.com and how do I get featured? So onzoom.com is a new website that the marketing team put out really just as a celebration of everything that's happening on Zoom. So it's a combination of what you see both on personal lives as well as work. And if you'd like to get featured, I would say tag us on social media with onzoom hashtag. And our team will look at that. Love to share your stories of how you're using Zoom, both personally and for work. education, business, government, healthcare. Would love to amplify your stories. Are there ways for enterprise account admins to centrally monitor parameter changes, activity, and security events on members' accounts? And can this be easily exported to a SIEM? Brendan.
Great question. Within the Zoom account, there is a reporting section, and within that there are operation logs. And those logs actually note every single change that occurs on the account and who performed that change. So administrators have the ability to look through history and see what changes have occurred. Additionally, that entire interface and all of those logs are available through our API. So individuals can link their SIEM service, so their security event sort of monitoring platform, to be able to ingest that data and then use that to correlate with other systems within their infrastructure.
Okay. Odette, I told you I was going to come back with more passcode and waiting room questions. Let's see. Can I run a check for future meetings in my organization that do not have passcodes applied?
So on that front, we will run a report, a weekly report that will provide an updated list of meetings that don't have a passcode.
Okay. Will both a waiting room and a passcode be required? Or if you already have a passcode enabled, then you don't need a waiting room. Will this be pushed by Zoom behind the scenes, or do hosts need to manually do this?
So in general, we recommend to have both, just to, if you want the highest level of security, but we will require you to have one or the other. And if any meeting that doesn't have a passcode, starting July 19th, we will apply automatically a waiting room for that meeting.
Excellent. Can passcodes be customized by the meeting creator, or is it always system generated?
There is some customization available, and you can see the settings, what is available. You can choose if it's numeric or alphanumeric, and there are other capabilities in terms of customizing the passcodes.
Okay, and Kim is asking, is the passcode or waiting room requirement going to be on a per meeting basis for those meetings without a passcode, or more generalized at the user group or account level?
So overall, we will recommend for the admin to make sure everything is set ahead of time before July 19th. So from that standpoint, it can be managed by the admin overall for the account. But when we apply the changes on July 19th, we will look into individual meetings and we'll apply the waiting rooms for those individual meetings that don't have a passcode.
Excellent. If the waiting room is enabled for a meeting, but the host doesn't join the meeting, will all the attendees be able to join the meeting?
So in our regular settings of waiting room, no, the whole idea of the waiting room is that the host admits the attendees into the meeting, and they can join unless the host admits those users. Now, we are adding capabilities. Some of them are already available. Well, actually, they're all available now, where you can, for example, allow people in your account to join, and they will not be, waiting for the host to join before they join.
All right, and that's pretty easy to find on that new security tab that you have. What the settings are.
The whole idea of the new tab is to have everything arranged in one place, so you can look into all the options in one place and decide what are your preferences from a security and privacy standpoint.
Yeah, and I do believe our moderators put the FAQ on our support page, which is also just a great place to go through it and read this if you have other questions. Let's see, one more here. If you add passcodes and or waiting rooms to an existing meeting after July 19th, so something that's already scheduled for after July 19th, will that change the meeting ID? In other words, if we just have to either distribute passcodes or educate about waiting rooms, or be forced to distribute new meeting IDs also?
So it depends on your choice. If you choose to apply passcodes, then it is recommended to redistribute the invitation, because if you resend the URL, it will include the passcode in it and will allow a one-click. If you chose waiting room, there is no change required.
And in either case, the meeting ID won't change. The meeting ID
Thanks for
will stay
clarifying.
the same.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, just as Oded was saying, we recommend refreshing that update so that folks have that one-click experience. But when this change goes into effect, no change in the meeting links occur. The only thing that will happen is if you added a passcode, folks will be asked to enter that. Or if you do not add a passcode, the existing meeting links will work. Just you as the host will be required to admit individuals into that session.
Excellent. Can you pause a webinar broadcast?
So Brendan, if you want to add to it, but the host has the ability to control that through the controls, the host controls.
Exactly. Right now we have the ability to stop or start our stream that's going out to the other services.
Excellent. How do you include different time zones on a calendar invite? Any tips on that?
We basically rely on the calendar itself to take care of that. So, it depends on your calendar settings.
Okay. And is it possible to see what version of a client each person in a meeting or webinar is running?
So that data is visible on our dashboard to see what participants are in a meeting, what version they're running, and details about their connection for a particular session.
Great. Eric, last week we had Gary on to talk about the CISO roundtables, and how can an organization join or participate in the international CISO roundtables? Should we reach out to our account manager, or is there a specific place to send a request? I'll answer yes, you should reach out to your account manager, but maybe Eric, can you talk a little bit about the CISO roundtables that we are running?
Yeah, I think either way works, and you can reach out to our AE or reach out to our, the marketing channel, or just send the feedback to us. And Gary, he's managing the CISO consoles, and just feel free to reach out to us if you want to join us to help. Thank you.
Excellent. And I see now we're at the top of the hour, so I'd like to thank all of our panelists, thank all of everybody for attending, and we will see you next week for the last one of the 90 days. So thank you all. Eric, any parting words?
No, thank you all. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.